In Rise of Kingdoms, like I've said many times before, every single commander does something slightly different. There is no commander that is completely identical to another, and that's why in today's video, I will be updating my overall commander tier list. This tier list takes everything into account. So if you want to know the true best commanders in Rise of Kingdoms based on open field strength, investment potential, and many other factors, you want to stick around till the end of the video. Now let's start off by discussing how is this tier list going to be ranked, because I've done my investment tier list and I've done my open field tier list. Why is the overall commander tier list different? Well, it's almost like the best of both worlds. I'll be taking everything into account. Does the commander do well in the open field? Do they do well in a garrison or a rally situation? Do they do well in some other game mode? Maybe Sunset Canyon, they're really good. Maybe they're really good in Champions of Olympia. All that will be taken into account. And then I'll also look at investment potential and also, like I said before, open field strength. So we're going to look at everything to do with the commander. And obviously, some things are more valuable than others. Because Constantine is the best Canyon commander doesn't mean he's going to go into the top tier, but he will get bonus points because of that. And if a commander really does excel in a certain thing, maybe for example Guan's debuffs, I will certainly mention that when I do rank them. So you'll get some advice on these commanders and also see where they sit compared to the other commanders that are currently in the game. So now with that out of the way, let's switch over to the tier list. So now here is the actual tier list, and unlike when I made my overall commander tier list last time, this time there are 6 tiers, and every single tier means something different. The best always are the commanders that are just so good you can't rank them anywhere below best always. Very solid are commanders which are good in a lot of aspects. Maybe they're a good rally and a good open field commander. Maybe they got really good investment potential. Maybe they're usually a best always, but their investment potential isn't as high. Then you've got strong sometimes. These commanders have their usages. There are some modables where they're really, really good. There are some game modes where they're really strong, but they're not really the most powerful commanders in the game. Niche strengths are commanders which are okay in very rare situations. Maybe some accounts will benefit a lot, or maybe they work extremely well in one thing but nowhere else in the game. Outdated or bad choices are commanders which are just really that. They either don't do anything that amazing, or they're fairly outdated to the point where there's other commanders that do the same thing and they do it better, and then Stinky Trash is just the worst commanders in the game. Starting off the tier list though, we've got Nevsky, and he's going to go into the best always. His investment potential is probably at the very solid commanders, but because he's really good in the open field and he's a decent rally commander as well, plus he works in Ark of Osiris and pretty much any game mode you can think of, he's definitely one of the best commanders in the game, and is definitely the best cavalry primary in the game as well. Alexander the Great is going to go into strong sometimes. He's in this tier for pretty much every single tier list. Open field wise, he's in this tier. Investment wise, he's in this tier. He's just a good overall commander. He's decent with Lao Che, he's decent with CPO. You get him in Season 3. Can't really go wrong with Alexander the Great. Constantine is going to go into niche strengths, really good in Canyon, that's pretty much it. Some okay KVK2 garrison potential, but that's not really a very common game mode. So niche strengths is probably where he definitely sits. Attila also going to go into niche strengths. His investment potential is horrible, and as a rally commander, he's good for counter rallies, and he's okay for whale players if you're looking for like a 4th or a 5th cav march, but otherwise he's definitely one of those more niche commanders. Most free-to-play low spenders should get him. Jan Ziska is also going to go into niche strengths. For Sunset Canyon, he's actually decent. For open field, he's okay because of his AoE. He is never your go-to choice though, and is mainly there to be a garrison commander. Cao Cao is an outdated or bad choice. He's got some uses in KVK 1, some uses in KVK 2, and if you double relic him in lower seed KVKs, he can work, but he's not your main choice for pretty much anything. He's a pretty good Barb Fort Rallier as well, but that's not something you really want to spend gold heads on. Then we got Chandragupta. He's probably going to go into strong sometimes because with a cavalry modable, he's up there with some of the best commanders in the game because of his debuffs, and he's just an overall fairly strong cav commander still to today. But I wouldn't say he's that amazing. He's probably going to be at the end of the strong sometimes tier, though he definitely has a lot of solid usages as a debuff commander and also as just a good cavalry commander. CPO is instantly in best always. He had garrison potential, not really anymore. Really good in the open field, no doubt about it. Probably the best commander as a first infantry investment ever, and he's always going to be a fairly strong commander, at least for now. Charlemagne is trash. Amanatory is a niche strength. I mean, if you're looking for a very good archer march and you have her and Artemisia, she will work, but she's not your go-to choice. Her investment potential is not good at all, but she can trade pretty good in the open field, and she somewhat works with Ditto in a garrison. It's not an amazing garrison, but in a lower seed KVK, it can certainly work. Lubu is probably trash. I mean, you can't really access him. His investment potential is horrific, and he's average on the open field, if not below average. Ragnar is outdated or bad. He works with Attila. That's pretty much all he can do. Theodora is in the trash tier. She's pretty outdated for garrisons to the point where she really has no usages, and if you do run her, you're going to get a bad trade. Charles Martel is going to go into probably niche strengths. I mean, as an infantry commander, he's pretty strong for the open field KVK 1, 2, and 3. Some Season of Conquest usage if you do double relic him. Keep in mind though, he does do no skill damage, which definitely in the current meta with all the skill damage debuffs and all these skill damage increases, does actually hurt him quite a bit. CJ is going to go into niche strengths as well. Lots of commanders in this tier right now. He's just an all-round average commander. His investment potential is average. His strength is average. Everything about him is just pretty average. And this is probably the best tier to put him in. William is going to be our first commander in very solid commanders. Really good cav commander. Investment-wise, he's still fairly decent. He's got an AoE, he's got a really good buff and debuff. You really can't go wrong with a William, and if you run him in your murder ball, you're definitely going to like him. Cleopatra is probably going to go in outdated or bad choices. The reason she's a bad choice to spend gold heads on is because she's there for gathering, but if you are using her for gathering, she's in the best always tier. So all the gathering commanders are going to go there just because they definitely have a usage in the game. They're just not worth your gold heads. Guan is going to go into strong sometimes, probably the top of that tier. I did debate putting him in very solid commanders, but I feel that his investment potential is really bad, and he can be a very squishy commander. But like I said in the first few minutes of the video, his debuff is up there with some of the best in the game, and that's why he's still in this tier. If he didn't have his silence, he'd probably be somewhere down here, or maybe in niche sometimes, but Guan has a lot of value with his debuff, though he can be a fairly squishy and sometimes weak commander. Cyrus is a niche strengths. I mean, he's got good debuffs, he's got okay damage, some okay anti-swarm, but he's definitely not up there with some of the best commanders. Gorgo is going to go into best always. When you look at her kit, she's a very good garrison. She's very good in the open field. She's one of the only smite commanders in the game, and she's got a fairly decent investment potential. Obviously, because she's a garrison, it's not the best in the game, but she's got okay investment potential for now. So Gorgo definitely worthy of the best always tier, though I think she will move down over the coming months. YSS is going to go into probably outdated or bad choices. He's not the most powerful garrison commander anymore, and he obviously doesn't work on the open field. Zeno is a niche strength. She's just a garrison commander. Ethelfled I'm going to put into niche strengths as well. She is free, which is really nice, but beside that fact, she is not the most powerful commander in the game, and she's not very good besides KVK 2 and 3, where you can really use her, and in Season of Conquest, she's also not that amazing. Edward of Woodstock is outdated or bad. I mean, he's an okay KVK 2 to 3 rally. He's an okay commander in Season of Conquest, like barely passable, but he's not very amazing. And if you run him as a primary, you're never going to get a good active skill. El Cid is probably a outdated or bad choice. KVK 1 is alright, KVK 2 is okay. With his double relic, he's alright, but he's just alright all around. He's not the best investment, he's not worth gold heads, and this is probably where he belongs. Frederick is a trash commander besides KVK 1 if you get him at 5-1-1-1-1. He is pretty useless. Minamoto is a very solid commander in my opinion. He's really easy to access. You literally spend no gold heads on him. And as an investment, he's the best commander to buy with literal money. So Minamoto or Moneymoto, easily a very solid commander and works very well with a lot of cav murder balls. Jadwiga is an outdated or bad choice. This may change as we see more cav garrisons come into the game, but right now she's definitely not the cav meta. You'd rather a Yarn Disco Heraclius. Genghis Khan is probably going to go an outdated or bad choice as well. His damage is okay, his double relic is decent, but him as a commander is a bit lackluster. Mehmed's going to go into strong sometimes. If you double relic him, if you run him with pretty much any commander as a secondary, he's going to work pretty well, but he's definitely not up there as a strong commander like, let's say, William, because a CPO with a Lauche is definitely going to perform better than a CPO with a Mehmed as an example. Hannibal Barca is always useless. Harold, I'm going to say, has niche strengths. Really good with Pakal as a city popping march, really amazing. Other than that though, not the most amazing commander. I'm going to put Thutmose into outdated or bad choices. I mean, he's an okay commander, KVK 1 and 2. Actually, probably the best for KVK 1, okay KVK 2. And he's got some double relic potential in Season of Conquest, but his damage factor is just too low to actually put him in a higher tier. Lache, instantly best always. He's just the best infantry commander in the game, arguably the best commander in the game. AoE, 5 targets, 2,500 damage, really can't go wrong with him. Flavius is a niche strength, he's a good garrison, he's got some okay open field potential if he's getting attacked, but I wouldn't purposely run him on the field. There would be no point to use him unless you're trying to walk to a garrison situation. Heraclius is going to go into niche strengths, probably towards the top of that tier. He's actually okay in Canyon, and he's easily the best garrison commander with the fact that he can work with any commander. Gorgo is currently the strongest garrison, but Heraclius is the most universal garrison commander. Gilgamesh is also going to go into niche strengths. Usually he'd be a tier below, but because of his rally potential, because of his debuffs, he is worthy of that tier. Honda's going to go into strong sometimes for very similar reasons to Mehmed. Artemisia is going to go into strong sometimes because with Boudica Prime, she is one of the strongest archer commanders, but without Boudica Prime, she is almost useless unless you run her with a Manatori. Pyros is going to go into probably niche strengths. Actually, I might put him in outdated choices. I mean, the reason he goes there is because the only time you use him is if you don't have a Gorgo, and even then, Gorgo is just way better than Pyros. So with Lache, he's decent, but without Lache, he's not the best choice, and that's why he's a bad choice for an investment, because you'd rather get a Gorgo if you can win that Mightiest Governor. Takeda is also an outdated or bad choice, very similar reasons to Ragnar, only works with Attila, really doesn't work anywhere else. Bing is a very solid commander, currently 3 Cav commanders in there, and he's just the second best Cav primary, very, very powerful in the open field. He's not one of the strongest commanders in the game, but he definitely has his strengths, and if you run him in a Cav mutable, you'll be pleasantly surprised. Boudica Prime is also a very solid commander. When we look at her kit, she's definitely got her strengths. As an archer commander, she's got crazy debuffs, amazing single target damage, but she's just no longer at that best always tier. We've got 2 other stronger archer commanders who are more deserving of that tier, and unlike infantry who have 3 commanders there, she's just not at the same level as these 3 infantry commanders, or even at the same level of Nevsky at this current meta. I'd say that Leonidas is probably a trash choice at the moment. I mean, the reason is he's way too squishy. He used to be a very tanky commander, but with Guan Yu and being a very squishy commander, and with more archers coming in the game, he's pretty much just screwed. You'd never ever run a Leonidas. He's not worth the investment. He's very, very barely passable on the open field. Open field wise, he'd be here, but he's just not a good commander anymore. Justinian is going to go into niche strengths. As a rally, he's really strong. As an open field commander, he's fairly decent, but he's not the top open field commander. He is mainly there for rallying, and that's why he's in the niche strengths. Suleiman is used pretty much nowhere. Pakal in the niche strengths with Harold. Really, really good city popping march. That's just about it. Bertrand is going to go into probably niche strengths as well, but towards the end of the tier. He's got his strengths on the open field, and he's just pretty much used for like a 5th or a 6th Cav march. But besides that, he's not very strong, and as a rally, he's definitely not up there with the meta. Nebu is in the strong sometimes tier. As an investment right now, he's not the best choice, but for open field, he is still fairly powerful and is worthy of that tier. John Prime, instantly in the best always, one of the strongest commanders in the game for cavalry, especially as a secondary commander. Julius Caesar is going to go in niche strengths, really good with a fast rage cycle commander. He's really good with a double relic, but he's not really worth your actual gold heads. Mulan also going to go into niche strengths. As a commander, she's very strong with Trajan, but that is really just about it. Ditto also going into niche strengths. The reason she does get that tier is because, well, she's a garrison commander. She doesn't have many open field potential, but she's just a really powerful garrison. Ramses, outdated or bad choice, pretty much same reason as Edward of Woodstock. He's just outdated. There are commanders who do what he does, but they do it better. Same thing with Saladin, in my opinion. Besides KVK2, he is a fairly outdated choice. In Season of Conquest, he's not the strongest, doesn't really work with Nevsky. I mean, it's an okay pair, but doesn't work. His Elterfled combo is very weak nowadays, and he's just a fairly, outdated commander. Other commanders do what he does, they do it better, and he's not even that tanky in the current meta. Henry is worthy of the very solid commanders. I'd say the reason being he is very tanky, he's a solid archer commander, and he's a very good rally. Zulang, instantly the best always. Him and Lao Chai are always side by side, probably the 2 strongest commanders in the game, probably even equal in their strength. Barber is going to go into niche strengths. I'll also just chuck in Margaret. They're solid as siege commanders. I've seen some really amazing trades, but they're expensive to get into using, and also can be difficult to run on the open field. Richard is an outdated or bad choice. Besides barb farming, he is pretty much useless. Tarek is a very solid commander, decent rally, decent open field commander, okay investment potential. Can't really go wrong if you do have a Tarek. Moctezuma is used absolutely nowhere. Sargon is going to go into strong sometimes at the top of the tier. His investment potential right now is not that amazing. He may be fairly good in the open field, but because of his investment potential, he is knocked down 1 tier. And that's just something I've noticed. With Sargon, he's not the strongest commander in the game at the moment, and because his debuff is very heavy in skill damage, there are a lot more commanders which do what he does, and they do it better. And not to mention that Lao Che especially is very much related to smite damage, and I predict infantry are going to get more and more smite damage commanders over the years, which means Sargon isn't the most valuable infantry commander in an infantry mutable as well. Herman Prime is straight into the best always tier, probably the best commander besides Lao Che and Zulang, because his debuff is up there with the best in the game. He's got an AoE, he really does buff Zulang as well, so you can't go wrong with a Herman Prime. Ashobani Bali is going to be in the solid choices. In my opinion, he's just a solid commander all round. As a current investment, he's solid because he's brand new, he's a very good rally, he's got AoE, and his expertise is fairly powerful. Tamaris is a strong sometimes commander. The reason she goes here instead of niche strengths is because with Herman Prime, she's really amazing, and her debuff in a murderable is also extremely valuable. You can't really deny the fact that she is a really good debuff commander still to this day, and with Herman Prime, like I said, she's given some renewed synergy, plus she does have a relic now. Trajan is also going to go into strong sometimes. The reason he gets this tier is because he's easily the best buffing commander. His investment potential right now is not too bad, with the strong possibility that we do see some new leadership support commanders as well, and he's just an all-round fairly strong commander. Wizetian is a very bad commander. YSG is going to go on strong sometimes with Alexander the Great. They are just two older commanders which still work pretty well in the current meta, and they'll work with pretty much any commander of their troop type, so definitely worthy of the strong sometimes tier. And the final commander, Zhang Yu, also going to go into strong sometimes. He's a fairly powerful cav commander, can't really go wrong with a Zhang Yu, he'll trade well, he's got AoE, fast rage cycle, and he's an all-round just decent and strong commander. So now here is the final tier list, and the only major change I made while I was reorganizing all the commanders was I did move Minamoto down one tier. The reason I made this choice was when I looked at him compared to the other commanders, he just isn't as strong, and the only thing that's really amazing about Minamoto is the fact that he's really easy to access. But besides that, every other commander stayed in the same tiers, and I've reorganized every single tier from the best commander of that tier down to the worst of that tier. So for example, the best of best always is Lao Che tied with Zulang, and the worst is Gorgo. And then if you go to niche sometimes, the best is Justinian, and then the worst is Flavius. So it just goes down like that throughout every single tier, which means if they're at the end of strong sometimes, they're almost in the niche strengths tier. So this is the final tier list. So now that we've made it to the end of today's video, I just want to say that when I say subscribe, it should make the subscribe button shoot out a little bit of fireworks when you push it. So do consider pushing the subscribe button, check out the new effect that YouTube added, and also help support the channel. To everybody who just subscribed, a massive thank you, and to everyone who's already subscribed to the channel, a massive thank you to you as well. Now, I just want to say thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.